So, in case you can or could see us in the back, I'm Holly. I'm the treasurer of the Alpha Pi Alumni Association. This is Jenny. Formerly. So we're going to talk about letters of recommendation. Most of you won't be writing your own recommendation, so you have to ask for it. It depends on what you're writing for. If it's a scholarship or something like that, then you want more academic sources. If it's later on in the future and you're talking about a job application or something like that, you'll probably want academic as well as experience from a job or something like that. So you want to ask whoever you're looking at least 2 weeks in advance. Most people are more than willing to help you, and they will write you a letter of recommendation, but they need that advance time. How many of you are taking at least 3 classes? Who has a family? And a job? And kids? And a car? Okay, yeah, things happen. So if you give them at least 2 weeks in advance, if you want to be on the safe side, say a month before, say, hey, would you be willing to write me a letter of recommendation? I'll get you all the materials, but plant that seed early on and make sure that you get them all of the information at least 2 weeks in advance. Most people are nice enough. It feels good to be asked for a letter of recommendation. If you're an officer and a member came up to you and said, would you write me a letter of recommendation for the scholarship? It makes you feel good. And so most of them will be more than willing to help you. Ask them nicely. If you're in a rush, they're not all about that. So if you ask them like you're asking them a favor, ask them in advance, which will help. But be courteous and know that they have all those things going on in their life as well. Talk to them directly. If they're far away, you can email them or on the phone, but it's better to be in person. So if it's a professor, see them in their office hours. If it's an employer or from the job, ask them outside of the job, but ask them in person. The more personable you are, the more willing they will be to help you. Also, if it's a professor, they have hundreds of students. And so if they're able to put that face to who they're writing to, that will help them as well. Who's a good writer? I am not. I got my associates in math, and I wanted some of my math professors to write me a letter, but math people are not writers. So you're going to need to ask multiple people for the same letter of recommendation. That way you can be sure to get a good one. Because even if you ask someone that is very prestigious, they might not be the best writer. They might not have a lot of time. Things come up, they might not be able to end up writing you that letter. So not only do you have a backup to make sure you have a letter, you can also make sure to have the best letter possible. So at least 2 people per letter of recommendation that you need. Yeah? Okay. Also, especially for professors, you might want to sit down with them and have a short interview. Make sure that they know exactly what you need, what you're looking for, the criteria, and tell them a little bit about you besides what they already know. A professor may not know about the community service that you're doing outside of school. An employer might not know about all of your activities at school. If you have something like a scholarship or with the Hallmarks, you're going to need 2 different letters of recommendation, one for academic and one for leadership. So if you have an academic professor and they know that you're in Phi Theta Kappa and they're talking about your leadership, that might not be what you need from them in that particular letter. So you can talk to them about a specific area that you want them to focus on. So maybe there was a project that you worked really hard on and you want them to focus on that, or something like that. So you can make sure that you get the best information from them. Something else that you can do is make sure that they have all the information that they need, and Jenny's going to talk about the packet that you can give them.
Hi everybody, I'm Jenny. In the handouts, I think that Candace passed around, there's a list in there of some items that you want to put together before you ask for the recommendation. These will be helpful for the person writing the recommendation, so they have a source that they can go back to look at while they're writing the recommendation, above and beyond the interview that Holly talked about. So you're going to provide them with the purpose of the recommendation from the source. Usually it's a website that has the criteria, and you want to include all of that information, the how-tos of submitting if you submit it online. You can, and I believe Candace is going to talk about this a little later, specifically for the hallmarks and the common application, but there are several ways that you can submit recommendation letters, either online, through yourself, through your advisor, or from them directly. So use this checklist, and I use it every time I ask for a recommendation letter. When I ask for one from my boss, when I ask for one from my Phi Theta Kappa advisor, they have found it immensely helpful. Rarely do they come back to me and say, can you provide me more information on this? Because I do provide them that vita for the specific thing that I'm asking for a recommendation for. So you also want to tell them why you're applying for this specific award, scholarship or admission to a university, a job. Why do you really want that particular thing? You want to provide them with the criteria for whatever you're applying for, who the letter should be addressed to, whether it be admissions, a specific employer, or HR director. And if it should be sent electronically, the instructions on how to submit. This is really important. When I applied for grad school, my boss was super confused, even though I provided him with instructions. He's very savvy with electronics. I went and sat down with him, and so you might expect to sit down with the person who's writing the recommendation letter and help them actually submit the letter. You want to provide them with your major, your GPA, activities, as Candace described in the vita, organizations, volunteerism, leadership positions, your educational and professional goals. Where do you want to be in 5 years and beyond? A short biography, where you're coming from, maybe some of the barriers that you've had to overcome, getting to where you want to go with those goals. Those are some things that you want to provide them. And again, provide them with a curriculum vitae or resume for the specific recommendation. Does anybody have any questions?
I just heard someone say resume, so would you turn in a vita and a resume, or it depends?
It depends on the situation. Sometimes when you're getting a recommendation letter, for example, when I applied to grad school, they asked for a resume. They didn't ask for a vita. So I provided my employer and my Phi Theta Kappa advisor with a resume and not a vita. Sometimes if you're requesting a recommendation letter, maybe you want to provide both. It just depends on the situation. Any other questions? Okay, I think now we're going to turn it over to Catherine for a little exercise.
Alright, so we're just going to have a mini exercise. So our exercise is you're going to write your own letter of recommendation. If you think it is hard to imagine how hard it is for your professors, you'll have a chance to see how hard it really is. So you have to have a purpose for the letter. Is it for the Hallmark awards, a scholarship, admissions? You have to make that clear in the letter. And so you want to tell us why you are deserving of this award, scholarship, admissions. And we know it's hard, but please try to write this in the third person. And you can use the information in that little packet we just gave you to try to come up with the best letter for yourself. So we have about 10 to 15 minutes to do this.
Will these be turned in?
No. It's just an exercise. You can actually see how hard it is for your teachers or advisors to actually do this for
And we'll be walking around answering any questions you might have about this specific exercise.